We've got two new recruiting predictions in favor of the Miami Hurricanes. One for a big-time player on offense, and another for a standout on defense.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Dono, and on this episode of Locked On Canes, I was asked to give bold predictions, and I'll give them to you. Individual Miami players, some team predictions. I will tell you, though, in doing this exercise, I found that when you've got a team like Miami that's expected to be really good and it's coming off a successful, not completely successful, but pretty darn successful season last year, a lot of my so-called bold predictions may not be that bold for a team that's expected to achieve a lot. We'll talk lots of recruiting on this episode. You know, we all know there are some really important verbal commitments that are going to be announced tomorrow. 5-star defensive lineman David Folorunsho, 5-star offensive lineman Mark Matthews. We'll tell you the latest as they're in uphill battles for both what we're hearing and what we're thinking about 24 hours out from those. We'll give you the latest on that. Meanwhile, even if we don't know for sure if Miami's getting any good news tomorrow, I think good recruiting news could be coming very soon. There are crystal ball predictions, or the RPMs, or what they call them on 3 Sports and Rivals. There are predictions coming in left and right for Miami to land 4-star stud players over these last couple of days. So on the defensive side of the football, and I would say the timing of this topic, it's really good for us because, you know, we had a question yesterday from our everydayer Sherry, who was wondering about linebacker recruitment. How's that going for Coach Heatherman, who's the linebackers coach and the defensive coordinator? And almost on cue, after Sherry was wondering how we're doing there, Miami gets multiple RPM predictions to land 4-star linebacker A.J. Randle out of North Carolina. We talked about him a little bit yesterday. Now, for Randle, the other top schools in the mix for him, but again, Steve Wiltfong, E.J. Holland, I think Chad Simmons, also of On3, was in on this, predicting Miami to get this one over the finish line. If Miami wins A.J. Randle's recruitment, they'd be beating out the likes of Florida, Georgia, Ohio State, South Carolina, and NC State. A.J. Randle is a player that, you know, I had a conversation about him actually on Gio Million's stream yesterday. I was a guest on his Caneswear show, and in terms of the staff evals, you know, because, you know, the way Corey Heatherman evaluates recruits is not necessarily the same way the people who do the rankings on 24/7 Sports and on 3 Sports do their rankings. Like Miami's staff, they consider A.J. Randle to be at or very near the top of their linebacker board. That, you know, they like him almost as much, if not as much, as Caden Henderson, who's a 5-star. A.J. Randle's a high-level 4-star. But this is someone that Miami staff is in love with. A.J. at this point, he's got good size for a high school junior, still growing into his frame, 6'3", 210 pounds. I'm sure he's still getting bigger, but, you know, at 17 years old, 16 or 17 years old, being 6'3", 210 is not bad. He's going to keep growing into that frame. And according to his scouting profile on 3 Sports, Randle can do it all. A.J. Randle can cover. He can run sideline to sideline, and he can come off the edge. He's got a lot of quickness and range. He's one of the more exciting linebackers on the board and has a ton of upside, we say. Like, A.J. Randle really fits the profile of what a modern-day linebacker should look like with his combination of strength and speed and explosiveness. And he's got positional versatility as well. A.J. Randle did, I think as of this morning, he locked in his commitment date. It's going to happen on May 21st, which is Thursday. Miami has become a strong trending favorite there. Now, A.J. Randle is the number 5 linebacker in the entire class, and he's the number 57 overall prospect nationally. He said this about a recent visit to Miami. This is a quote he gave to On 3 Sports. My visit to Miami was outstanding. The coaching is elite. The teamwork is elite from the recruiting staff all the way up, and they know how to make you feel at home. The scheme fit is there, and a plan to use my versatility. There you go. I believe I could fit into the program and make a lot of plays. Corey Heatherman's defense is a lot of fun to play in. And, of course, if you're an incoming linebacker, that's also your position coach. So it's looking good for A.J. Randle. We have the crystal balls and the RPMs coming in from every angle for Miami to land A.J. Randle. I know they're still, recruiting Caden Henderson. Noah Glover is another name you hear a lot at the linebacker position. Another name that's really gotten on our radar recently is Jarrell Chandler. He's a top 100 player, 4-star out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Some schools are recruiting him as a safety. Others, including Miami, are recruiting him as a linebacker. Now, he's scheduled to come off the board on Monday, and the Tennessee Volunteers have been considered the trending favorite, but apparently Miami has been putting a lot into his recruitment lately. So that's another one we might watch out for at linebacker. But switching over to the offensive side of the football, I know offensive line recruiting, it's been a huge topic among Miami fans as we've all been tracking the Mark Matthews situation, of course. But outside of that, the Hurricanes are now trending very strongly here for another one of the elite interior offensive linemen in the class, because Miami already landed another one of those top IOLs in Sean Tatum, who's already locked in and verbally committing. And now Miami is getting crystal ball predictions. Wilt Fong again, Chad Simmons, E.J. Holland. I know Wilt Fong has been kind of in the doghouse of Miami fans because you felt he led you astray on Mason Johnson-Cook. I don't blame Fong for that, by the way, but maybe he's trying to get out of that doghouse if Miami can get some of these other ones over the finish line. But interior offensive lineman Jatori Williams out of Phoenix City, Alabama, is being predicted to land at Miami, and we're going to have to wait about 8 more days before Jatori makes his announcement, because he's going to do that on May 22nd. Miami is looking like a strong favorite right now, and the other finalists, in addition to Miami, are Georgia, Kentucky, Florida State, Alabama, and Auburn. Now, again, he's from Alabama, so you got the in-state schools in there, and Jatori Williams was for about a few months, at least 5 or 6 months perhaps, he was actually committed to Alabama. I think he was committed from December to June to Bama, but he ended up decommitting and admitting, like, I kind of got rushed into that process, he said. So he wanted to reopen his recruitment. Now, despite the fact that he decommitted from Alabama, like, Alabama has kept recruiting him, and they've still maintained their status among his finalists. But Miami has been the one, and this is, the crystal ball started coming in for Williams really yesterday. But Miami's been trending for him, I think, for a much longer time than that the Hurricanes have been the standard in his recruitment. And this is a 6'5", 320-pounder. He's the 6th-rated interior offensive lineman in the entire class of 2027. He's a 4-star prospect, and he's a former high school teammate of Dalen Upshaw, who's on Miami's roster at wide receiver. So I'm sure Dalen has been a big part of Jatori Williams' recruitment, and for him to have a close friend and a former high school teammate on the team would surely kind of help Williams' transition into college life if he does decide to go to Miami. So, yeah, Georgia, Miami, Kentucky, Florida State, Alabama, and Auburn are the, I guess, that 6 finalists for Jatori Williams, but Miami is looking like they've got a good chance of getting that done. And this is a player, I've gone down some of the Jatori Williams film rabbit holes. He plays with a nasty streak. He is an emphatic blocker. He's very athletic, comes from a multi-sport background, very explosive. I love the way he run blocks. I guess given the fact that he's an Alabama interior offensive line prospect, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Inez Cooper, just sort of that nasty streak he plays with. He's not nearly as big coming out of high school as Big Coop was, because Big Coop was like, I think, just around 400 when he came out of high school, and Miami helped him trim down to 345. Jatori Williams is in the 320, 325 range right now, so I don't think he's going to have to be as mindful of his diet when he gets here, but hopefully he can develop the same way. Williams mostly plays left tackle in high school, but his kind of focus is to move inside in college because he's considered to be a higher value prospect in the interior than the exterior because of his physical traits. But, we all know if you enroll at Miami as an offensive lineman, Alex Mirabal is going to use you at multiple different spots. So again, I would expect Jatori Williams will probably play guard at Miami, but He'll also get in some work at tackle, and then down the road, you never know. I mean, Jalen Rivers was a guard at Miami, and until he wasn't, he became a high-level left tackle. Samson Okunlola came in as a tackle. He's mostly played guard. Matt McCoy was a guard until now. It looks like he's going to be the right tackle. So you never know when you project it 3 years, 4 years down the road on an Alex Mirabal offensive line. Things can change up there, but hopefully Miami can get that one over the finish line 8 days from now, May 22nd, the commitment of Jatori Williams. My thoughts on Mark Matthews and David Folorunsho when we come back with those two big announcements coming tomorrow. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills, it can get overwhelming fast. But that's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. Rocket Money tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help you cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized, and it gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Folks, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. If you consume our content every day, you're an everydayer, and we love the Everydayer Club members. If you want to join that Everydayer Club, hit that all-access tier. Go to lockedoncanes.supercast.com, and when you become an all-access everydayer, you get exclusive episodes several times a week of the Canes Colada. You get Locked On Canes newsletters, one-on-one texting with me, and so many other great benefits. Go to lockedoncanes.supercast.com to become an all-access everydayer club member today. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. So another target that we have been looking at for Miami, Gabby Urrutia was writing about him this morning at InsideTheU.com, an Oregon committed four-star cornerback. It's either, I don't know how to pronounce it, it's either I-King or A-King. It's A-Y''King Hall is his last name. Really good player out of Dothan, Alabama. So another Alabama prospect that apparently Miami is putting in energy to flip this player. I don't know what Dan Lanning did to piss Mario Cristobal off this last week, because Oregon thought they were going to be the ones to flip five-star corner Dante Wright until Miami said, not so fast, my friends. We're taking him down here to South Florida. And now another top cornerback who is committed to Oregon, Miami's coming after him. I mean, I know one of the theories there, just to take you guys behind the curtain, is, remember Oregon's cornerbacks coach Rashad Wadood was, reportedly one of Miami's targets to become their new cornerbacks coach. And he obviously, didn't take the job, didn't come here. I'm actually really happy that Terry Jefferson got the permanent gig, because T-Jeff was my guy all along. And you know what? The T-Jeff promotion has been validated, because there were some Miami fans out there who said, okay, the only chance we've got to flip Dante Wright would be if we can hire Rashad Wadood, because that's his guy. They've got a great relationship. Miami didn't hire Rashad Wadood, and Terry Jefferson flipped Dante Wright. And now Mario's trying to flip a prospect away from Rashad Wadood, the cornerbacks coach over there at Oregon. So we'll keep our eyes on that one, as A-King Hall is the 17th rated cornerback in the class of 2027, and he's a high-ranking four-star player that Miami apparently has their sights set on. All right, so we have our sights set on what could be a big day, what could be a disappointing day, or what could be a great day if one of these works out for us, with five-star defensive tackle David Folorunsho set to make his commitment tomorrow. Somebody probably knows. I don't have his actual scheduled time in front of me. So if somebody knows exactly what time Folorunsho's committing. If that's out there, let us know in the comments. I would imagine it's sometime either in the afternoon or the evening, but that's happening on Friday. And then also on Friday, and this one I do know the time, 5:30 p.m., depending on how the intel is looking right before, I'm either going to be watching it or I'm going to be like out fishing or something if it's not going our way. But Mark Matthews is going to be announcing. And so, for Matthews, the primary contenders are Texas A&M and Miami, with the intel for the 5-star out of St. Thomas Aquinas in South Florida has been pointing in Texas A&M's direction, while for Folorunsho, the primary two seems to be a Notre Dame versus Miami battle. And as weird as this is to say, and I think I've hinted at that throughout this week, I actually feel better today about going into Illinois and grabbing Folorunsho than I do about keeping Mark Matthews in South Florida. I actually feel like there is more buzz and better vibes about Miami possibly getting Folorunsho. It certainly has been a battle and will continue to be a battle no matter what he decides tomorrow with Notre Dame, because with Folorunsho being in that area, Chicago is like an hour or so away from South Bend. His head football coach played for Notre Dame. His trainers have connections to Notre Dame. So there's a lot that's like pulling Folorunsho in that direction. And I know there's obviously been some Notre Dame confidence throughout that process. I keep hearing about Miami reportedly having confidence as well. And I'm going to be watching, tonight to see if there are any crystal balls that drop. Obviously, you wake up on Friday morning, you see what the trends are looking like. As we've learned, the trends the night before the commitment are not necessarily the trends the day of. Because, a few weeks ago, we went to bed on a Friday night thinking Myson Johnson-Cook was a Hurricane, and we woke up Saturday morning thinking he was an Auburn Tiger, and he did end up being an Auburn Tiger. So we'll be watching the Folorunsho thing. In terms of Mark Matthews, I can confidently tell you that there's definitely, from my understanding, there's still open communication from the Miami side, and I don't believe we've gotten any indication that it's definitely over. Pack it up, you're done. I think there is still, a little bit of reception from the Matthews side, but we've had every reason to believe for the last few weeks that Texas A&M is probably the team to beat there. I don't want to see the comments about oil money or whatever, because our understanding is this is not a money thing, that Miami would probably be willing to match or exceed any NIL offer that Texas A&M is making. I think this is just a case of, for whatever reason, the hometown kid feels more comfortable at that spot, potentially in College Station and leaving home for a few years. And he's comfortable with that coaching staff. I think he really likes both coaching staffs, though. I mean, you get nothing but admiration for Mirabal and Cristobal, but, for Texas A&M, I guess there's admiration there as well. And, it's one of these things. It's hard to explain. If Miami doesn't land Matthews, obviously it's a miss. I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't a miss. But, sometimes misses are almost impossible to avoid if a player just doesn't want to be there. I mean, okay, so the top player in Florida maybe wants to go play his college ball in Texas. The top player in California wanted to play his college ball at Miami. And by the way, Miami did not have the highest NIL offer for Dante Wright, so he wasn't chasing a bag. He wants to be at Miami. The top player from Illinois in Israel Abrams, sorry, I get my Israels confused. Israel Abrams, the quarterback, he wants to be at Miami. Yet the top player from Florida who lives in South Florida maybe doesn't. So it's one of those things. It's a miss, but it's not like you don't rake Mirabal over the coals for it, because unfortunately, you can't land everybody. The same coach who was able to land Jackson Cantwell was able to land CeCe Maui-Noah and Samson Okunlola. So yeah, to sum that up, a little bit more quiet confidence in Folorunsho than Matthews right now. I think maybe there's a chance Miami goes 1 for 2 tomorrow. If we go 2 for 2, we celebrate. If we go 0 for 2, we're on to the following week where Miami should be landing some players. When we come back, Bold predictions. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I co-host that show. All the big stories, including all of this college football playoff expansion nonsense. We break it all down on Locked On ACC. Something, I praised Mario Cristobal for this yesterday on Locked On ACC, and I'll double down on it today. Despite the fact that apparently the support within the ACC, administrators, coaches, decision makers, the support inside the ACC is almost unanimous in supporting doubling the size of the college football playoff from 12 to 24 teams, even though zero fans want that. Like, none of us want that. Our guy Mario Cristobal is one of the few and maybe the only holdout within the ACC who is not in favor. Like Cristobal said, 2014 playoff, it's too big. You devalue the regular season. Like, it's not good enough. Like, you should be able to earn being one of the top 12. 24 is too much. Coach, I agree. So I'm glad Mario Cristobal is, standing up for, and 12 is still a lot, right? And some would say, well, look at how stacked his rosters are, how many resources he has. Of course, he's in favor of keeping the playoffs smaller, and he only has to go through the ACC. Bottom line is, like, if a Mario Cristobal team were to get into the playoffs by being like the 23rd ranked team, that wouldn't satisfy Mario. That shouldn't satisfy any of us. Like, we want to keep this thing where you have to earn it, and we want to keep the value of the regular season. So I stand with Coach on that one, 1,000%, even though the rest of these rats in the ACC are apparently selling out to the 24-team college football playoff. Get a question from an Everydayer Club member, Eric. I appreciate Eric. He says, hey, have you done a bold prediction show yet? Do you have any bold predictions? Now, here's the thing. It's like, if I were hosting, Locked On Gators coming off a 4-8 season, I don't know how Brandon Olson does it. Well, they have the excitement of the new coach and they're recruiting well and everything. But, if I'm coming off a 4-8 season, or if I'm hosting, Locked On Seminoles coming off a 5-7 season, then anything positively you say about those dumpster fires would come off as, wow, that's a bold prediction. Like, it's harder to do that with Miami when you're coming off of a 13-win national runner-up, finished the season ranked number 2, and now you're top 10, if not top 5, in everybody's preseason rankings heading into next year. Like, the superlatives don't seem as bold when you have the expectations that Miami has. But I'm going to try my best here to I'll give you 5 bold proclamations or predictions on this upcoming season. Number 1, Darian Mensah is going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. He's going to be at that ceremony at New York in the end of the year. I hope he wins it. There's probably going to be some anti-Miami bias there. But Darian Mensah, to me, is going to have not only the success, wins, and loss-wise, he's going to have the numbers and the Heisman moments. Mensah is going to get to that ceremony, and that would be 2 in the past 3 years. Cam Ward in 24, Darian Mensah hopefully in 2026. So Mensah will be at that ceremony. Now, if I wanted to get really bold, I would say that Mensah and Malachi Toney both get there, which would be awesome. But in some ways, it's better to get just one into the finals, because otherwise they take votes away from each other. I know it's like it has happened before. Like it happened with Alabama before, where you get 2 players in the finals and your guy still wins the Heisman. But we've also been on the Miami side of that, where when Ken Dorsey and Willis McGahee both were finalists for the Heisman, they finished 4th and 5th because they took votes away from each other clearly. I thought Willis McGahee was pretty deserving that year, if we're being honest. So Mensah to the Heisman ceremony. Second bold prediction, I was inspired by our pal 50 from Category 6, who joined us earlier this week. I'm going to go with Marquis Lightfoot leading the team in sacks. He, I think, to me, is a dynamic pass rush specialist. He's not necessarily built to stop the run, but he's built for those obvious passing downs. A lot of these third downs, second and longs when Marquis is going to be on the field. And I believe that with the amount of attention that Damon Wilson is going to draw on the opposite side, I think Wilson's going to have a good year. I just think Marquis Lightfoot is going to see less extra attention, and he's going to lead the team in sacks this year. So go out there and prove me right, Marquis. That's number 2. Number 3, and this is more, I don't know how bold this is, but I Malachi Toney is going to have fewer receptions this year, but he's going to have more yards per reception, and he's going to have more total touchdowns this year. So I'm thinking, I think he had like 13 total touchdowns last year. I'm thinking 17 to 18 this year for Toney. And I think the yards per catch are going to be way up because Darian Mensah loves to go down the field. 86 attempts for Mensah last year of 20-plus yards through the air. That was the most deep ball attempts in all of college football. Malachi Toney is going to feast. Now, he was able to do a lot with the yak last year. Toney was the tunnel screen king. I think he's going to be getting more of those, but also getting some big-time bombs down the field from Darian Mensah this year. So that's number 3. Number 4, you know what? Everybody can unite around this one. Miami fans will love this prediction. Florida State fans will love this prediction. Gators fans will laugh at this prediction. I'm going to say Mike Norvell will get fired the day after the Miami versus Florida State game this year. And I say that because, first of all, the game's in South Florida this year. I think Miami's going to do terrible, terrible things on the field against Florida State. And then that happens to be right before Florida State's bye week. So the best time, if you're going to make an in-season coaching change, the best time to do it is heading into the bye week. The timing works out perfectly. I think Miami gets Mike Norvell fired, and Florida State fans will actually be thanking us because they want him out. So I'm going to give you that one. And then number 5. Again, I don't know how bold this is if you watch this man in the spring game and throughout spring. I'm going to say Jackson Cantwell is not only going to be all freshman ACC, but I think he's going to make all ACC left tackle as a true freshman, regardless of class. Juniors and seniors out there will be bowing down to Jackson Cantwell with the season he's about to have. I think he gets all ACC honors his first season as the left tackle at Miami. We get a question that says, hey, over the last few years, Miami's athletic department has made massive investments into the program between staff, recruiting, and facilities. If an open checkbook was available, what would be the best or most needed investment for the football program? I think, to me, it's always, these days, it's always NIL, even over anything you can do with your facilities, right? Because we've seen, our neighbors up there in Tallahassee, they spent so much money on their facilities that they neglected NIL, and so their roster has suffered, but their stadium looks beautifully updated. And Miami's obviously trying to do both. They're working on this new, I think, $150 million forever home for their football program. They're expanding the indoor practice facility. All of that stuff is important, but the roster, to me, is the most important thing. And, of course, keeping your assistant coaches happy. Miami's already given extensions to offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson and defensive coordinator Corey Heatherman. So the off-the-field investments have been there. I think if you have a blank check, to me, NIL is always the move these days because you see these rosters out there are allegedly over $40 million. I don't necessarily trust the numbers that people put out there. Like, I don't know how they get those numbers so precise if they're not making it up half the time, but there allegedly are rosters closing in on $50 million out there right now. So you want to see Miami stay competitive in that part of it always. We appreciate the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe. Make sure to subscribe to the Everydayer Club, and we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, the top sports podcast network in America. Your team every day.